welcome to the very first Austin Glug event. And tonight I'm joined by Emily. Emily's here, so she's our very, very special host this evening.
So for 5 years, my friends and I put on a Texas art and beer festival where we paired up breweries from all over Texas with contemporary artists and helped them to collaborate and find sort of the similarities between their processes.
Yeah, I think for us, with Matt especially, I mean, he does a really great job of sort of honing in on, we've been around a long time. So he keeps that classic look that we've got, and at the same time does some really cool new styles and ideas. And for me, it's really to get that introduced to a wider variety of folks and let them see what we're doing, and also let them appreciate Matt's work like we do.
Yeah, just turning the personality of the brand up to 11, just making people see it, you know.
I'd like to start with you, Matt, and just tell us a little bit about you. There we go. I think it's working. A little bit about you, how you got here, your history as a designer.
Sure. A little bit about me. I'm 32 years old, from San Antonio, live here in Austin, been here almost 10 years. Pretty much just like came up through the hardcore and punk scene, doing shirts and flyers and such things that you would do. That's kind of how I got into design. What? And then somebody told me that you could do this as a career, because I did not know you could do that, because I thought everybody could do it just because it was so accessible. Then went to school for it. Actually, Drew and I went to school, graduated in 2012. Then Drew and I worked together for 2 years, Sturdy MFG Co. If you know what that is, then that's tight. Then just kind of been doing my own thing for the remainder of the time since then.
Awesome. What about you, Davis? What's your history? How did North by Northwest come to be?
So the guys who know me in this room,
Hot mic. Hot mic.
Yeah. I got a plethora.
There we go.
So is this on? So yeah, the guys who know me in this room know you don't want to ask me that question about what my history is.
I'll rein you in.
Yeah, please do. So I've been doing craft beer since 1987, which is, I was 3 when I started, just in case anybody wanted. So I started a beer called Pecan Street Lager way back. We were the first craft brewery in Austin, second in Texas, actually. Went on to get brew pubs legalized, opened up a place called Copper Tank, which is still, the building's still there, but I sold out of there in about 3 years. I was the head of brewery operations there, and then started a place called North by Northwest, and it's been 19 years. And so we'll be 20 in September, which is amazing to me. I was just telling Brian and the guys from St. Elmo that it's like, there's this period of time in the middle, it's like the lost years. I don't know where the hell they went. That's the sort of shortened version of my life story, and I'll leave it at that, and we can talk more about beer and design. And,
awesome.
Yeah. Lastly, some people refer to me as the grandfather of craft beer, or godfather, I prefer, but that's my story.
We'll go with grandfather.
Yeah. Hey, since I grew this for Movember, it's much more accurate, and the hair. Went a few years ago. My 2.5-year-old daughter says, "You got gray hair, Papa."
So Matt, what inspires you and what inspires your work?
Oh, that's interesting. So a lot of people that know me in this room probably say that my anger inspires me. False. I'm actually inspired by love. So love for design, love to create things. I don't know. It's just a thing that it gets ever evolving. I just want to do better things, make myself better, make rad stuff for people. I don't know, connect with people, all that, and make things look how they should. And that's the thing for me.
Same question to you. What's your inspiration?
Well, it's funny. It's very similar. I think, and I imagine maybe anybody in the room who's a designer or a brewer, we do this stuff because we love doing it. I wouldn't have gotten started, other than I was crazy to start in 1987, but I wouldn't have gotten started if I didn't really love beer. I mean, really good beer. I fell in love with a really great beer in Germany. Back in 87, there wasn't any good beer in the U.S. I mean, thank God for Sierra Nevada. But that was about it. And my inspiration was just being too dumb to know any better, I suppose. And really, yeah. But that idea of connecting with people too. I mean, if anything in the world is a connecting device, it's beer. Really sitting down. We haven't come out with it yet, but we designed a label called Porch Time for Porch Time Pilsner, and it talks about it. Basically, goes through this series of how to properly pour a beer, but how to properly enjoy your time with your friends, and little stories back and forth, bounces back and forth, and at the end it says rinse and repeat. That's really my inspiration was that I wanted to make great beer, wanted to do something different. When I got started in '87, the story I tell, Brian's gonna get tired of me saying things again, was the story I used to tell was, it was hard to find a tap handle in 1987 because nobody knew what the hell you were doing. In today's market, it's hard to get a tap handle because everybody's doing it. But I trust that the craft beer industry is done for the most part by people who really love their craft and are dedicated to making a great product. And I think that's the same. If you love design, if you're in design, I don't think you do design because you think it's going to make you $1 billion. You certainly. Wait. Who misinformed me? Yeah.
You can make money doing it.
Yeah. Well, you can make money.
You can make a living
beer,
doing it. But if you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah. And so I don't think any of us who got started early in the craft beer business ever thought it would grow to what it's grown to. And now you do have the big guys coming in and buying out people for literally $1 billion in the case of a brewery in California.
Well, let's keep it light. How did you guys meet, and how did you know that it was the right fit, that you were meant to be? It's Valentine, so we're going with the theme: love, romance.
It was the look in his eyes. It was definitely the look in his eyes. He was working with another group that we had done a bunch of work with, and I, was really liked the work he was doing, and so he was venturing out on his own, and I was like, great, let's do it, and I've been super happy with it as far as meant to be. Things honestly fell together really well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty natural.
So what would you guys say is the value of design in beer?
It's everything. Yeah,
really. Like in this day and age, if you look boring, that's how you're perceived. Sometimes it works though. I mean, if you got all these crazy cans on a shelf, and then you're the one that's like kind of plain, that's the one people see first. It's really interesting to see the shelf game opposed to like the quality of beer game, because I think there's a lot of people making really great stuff, but some people, as you can see on this shelf over here, I couldn't pick out one that I can be like, oh, that's that, because these are all nuts. But but
speaking of keeping it light,
at the same time, like for design and beer, I think creating a valuable and stand apart image for a brewery or a beer, God, that can take that beer miles.
For sure. So what's your collaborative process like? How do you two work together? What's the back and forth look like?
He does all the copywriting. And so he will name a beer, or the brewery will name a beer, and then he'll write a story about it and kind of come up with a lot of the messaging. Not that I can't name it, but at the same time, he enjoys that creative process of copywriting and creating stories and telling a lot of that message to go with the beer. And then he kind of comes with a couple ideas that maybe something you can work with, maybe not. And then I just kind of show him a bunch of stuff that I think of or something that resonates with me, and then we kind of just mold it into what it eventually turns into. And the cool thing is that I don't just work on just beer cans or how the specific product looks. It's I kind of do a lot for the company, where it's events or promotions or anything that they might need that's visual. And I think that's a really interesting side part of it, because you kind of have kind of creative control sort of on how the entire experience is. And so people, you're not just whacking people over the head with these cans and they're like, I don't see where this came from. And so you're kind of developing that visual system.
So speaking of where things came from, I know that you've had a lot of fun with the zombie dragon. Can you tell us sort of where that came from?
Yeah, I mean the zombie dragon story And one thing I do want to, as you see these, I do want to just point out, I'm going to go off subject here for a second. When you see these cans roll up, he's done a great job, for me anyway, I feel like he's done a great job of maintaining the brand. We've been around 19 years. We've built a brand and a logo that stands out. People know it, they see it. It would be really easy to take the track of what you see up, there's so many beers that just, throw out this, and I would say it's funny, there's a lot of bad design out there, I'm sure he would say. There's a lot of bad beer out there, and it's unfortunate, but that's the thing that, but the idea of maintaining that brand and still being able to be creative has been super important to me, and he's done a great job of it. And so as you see these things roll up, I think you'll appreciate that.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah. But so what was your question again?
Zombie Dragon.
Oh, yeah, okay, Zombie Dragon. So Zombie Dragon was actually one of our anniversary beers a couple of years ago. We call it an East Coast IPA as opposed to a New England IPA. New England IPAs are really big and murky, things. And guys in the business know I'm a little bit older than some of the other guys who've been in the craft beer industry. So I'm sometimes a little bit of a curmudgeon. Haze doesn't do anything for flavor. It's just haze. Does it change the mouthfeel? Maybe a little bit, but not enough that it really matters to the quality or the taste of the beer. The dry hopping process that you do during fermentation that causes that haze, I'm sure does have some impact. But when you see a Zombie Dragon, it's a tiny bit hazy because the yeast we use a process called flocculates like crazy, so it just lets that yeast drop out. But so the story was we were originally going to call it was just an anniversary beer. It was no big deal. We were going to do it for the anniversary. That was going to be it. And it was going to be called Hazy Train. Well, our yeast really flocculates, so it wasn't very damn hazy. And on top of that, thank goodness I saw about a year after that fact, I was out in California. I saw a beer called Hazy Train with a TM next to it. It was like, good thing we didn't go down that road. But so literally the day that we needed to get it put in for label approval, and the day before, I think it was maybe just the week of our anniversary party, our brewer, they were talking, and I just learned part of this story the other day. They were talking, and they had just seen that anybody who doesn't watch Game of Thrones, this is a spoiler alert, so cover your ears if you don't want to know. Yeah. So one of the brewers came in and said, "Wow, did you see that show?" I said, "Oh yeah, that's great." He goes, "You said, man, it's like a zombie dragon. That's the coolest thing." And they both looked at each other and said, "That's the name of the beer." And so that was it. I mean, it was really just sort of the serendipitous event, and it's done crazy well for us. I think first of all, it's a great product, but at the same time, the name Zombie Dragon is like, I got to try that. And so then he did an awesome gig on the design. And if you read some of the stories on the cans, all three of the cans, there's a lot of musical references. Obviously, in a beer called Red Zeppelin, you're going to guess which band there's some references to. And then in Zombie Dragon, there's a band called the Zombies back in the '60s, and so there's the first line is a line from a song title from a Rob Zombie song. I was a musician long before I was a brewer, and so I really enjoy that stuff. The Northern Light tag goes from the White Stripes. They did a tour called the Northern Lights Tour, and so it's lyric. If you want to say the poem, I don't want to get too give myself too much credit, but the story on there is more like you'd see from their lyrics. It's not their lyric specific, but then the last line is, "We think Jack and Meg would like it." So just little things that so I actually went off track there. You're supposed to reel me back in.
That's all right. Well, you were just I
was on a roll.
Yeah. So I think we have time for one last question, and this one's for you. If you had to describe Davis using 3 beer tasting notes.
I don't know many.
That's 3. There's 3 words right there.
Fair.
You don't even have to be kind, dude.
I'm just looking for words that might make sense. What are tasting notes? Like
Well, then we'll
flavor
switch
profile.
it. You pick 3 for.
what are the ones that are like obvious? Like, when you drink a beer, what's the first thing you think of? Like, is it like hoppy? Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's one.
Hoppy would probably be a good one for Davis.
Is it edgy?
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. Man.
We'll let you think about them.
Yeah.
Maybe come back at the end and give us your
I'm
age.
not gonna say aged. You already
He
called
wants to
yourself
keep
old.
he wants to keep this love story going. So we'll stop him there. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks
guys.
very much.
Thanks for sharing
Enjoy.
with
Thanks
us.
everybody for coming out. I'm really happy to see
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you guys for coming out.